Welcome back, everybody, to the Triad of the Forest podcast, a podcast from Puerto Rican friends coming together to deep dives into Star Wars and other nerd-related media. These are Bad Batch Fridays. We're unoriginal, forgive us please, where we discuss each and every episode of the third and final season of The Bad Batch. Today, focusing on episode 13, Into the Breach. Yes, but before we get into that, we would love to welcome back to the Triad our good friend, Noor-Hal. Welcome back to the Triad.
Thank you. Hello there. Thank you so much for having me again.
Welcome.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Always
It's been a while. Like, when was the last time that we talked? I think it was was it last season of the Bad Batch? Maybe.
I think, or either that, or I think Andor.
No,
Andor probably.
No, we must have talked after Andor. Andor was so long ago. It seems.
I know. I feel like it was ages ago. So
Which is appropriate for this episode if you think about it. Which we'll get to.
Yeah.
But how's it going with you otherwise? It's been a minute since we've talked. There's been so many shows that have come out and so many upheavals in social media. How are you doing? Nora?
Oh well, doing great. Thank you. I think it's these are crazy times we live in.
Yeah.
Both in social media and real life. But I think well, enjoying as much as we can. I mean, with all what we had for Star Wars, with what we had this previous years, and with what is coming, and both in live action, animated, books, comics. We're spoiled, I guess.
Oh, there's so much Star Wars. And I think Star Wars is dead, right?
Allegedly, yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. Star Wars is supposed to be dead.
Right.
So it's been an interesting couple of weeks because for Star Wars being dead and buried and no one's buying High Republic and everyone hates Disney Star Wars, it's been like a couple of busy weeks because we've had so many announcements. We've had like the Living Force book come out. We've had a couple of High Republic comic books come out. The Acolyte trailer. We've had the Acolyte articles that have come out on Empire magazine. Obviously, Tales of the Empire. We have Star Wars Outlaw trailer for the video game. It's been remarkably a couple of busy weeks for Star Wars, considering that it's dead. So it's been interesting. Before we get going with Bad Batch, Noor-Hal, what are some of the Star Wars things that you have been either really into lately or looking forward to from some of the things that have been announced in the last couple of weeks?
I think I'm really intrigued about the Acolyte because I feel that it's wonderful to see this period of we've been kind of familiar with the High Republic, what transpired back then, and we know what happened in episode 1. So the in between, and I'm really looking forward. I was reading the article what Leslie Helen was saying, and I think I'm really excited about what we're going to see this this period of time of the Jedi, but with this how the Force. I mean, and I know there was some kind of a polemic like but there were no Sith because in episode 1 but remember, from a certain point of view,
yes
you can
exactly, but that's always an odd thing to say because you can't have Sith all of a sudden appear in episode 1 if they weren't in the background all the time during this whole time. So it's just like they were there, and we all, like, even before the Disney canon we had. I remember when I was like in middle school and high school, one of the first books that I ever read in Star Wars canon was Darth Maul's Shadowhunter, and it was about him as an apprentice to Darth Sidious and being, behind the scenes doing Sith stuff and killing Jedi so that the Jedi Council wouldn't know that the Sith are around. And it's like, this isn't a new concept. It's a thing that has been around, so it just like makes sense that the Sith has been around and they've been covering their tracks. So why wouldn't we want a story like this?
Yes. No, I'm really excited, especially with all this fantastic cast we're having. I mean, I was just like, Trinity when Carrie Ann Moss. That was amazing.
I was so excited when I saw that, and then to see her in the trailer and what the character can be, it's insane. I can't wait for it. I'm super excited.
Same. And also, well, I'm not a lot into games, but definitely Outlaws. The trailer was really interesting. So I think, yeah, like we said, these last few weeks we've been fed with so much
Yes,
Star Wars.
yes,
We're
yes.
eating well. So we've been saying for the
Yes.
last, when did we start this podcast? 3 years ago. We've been eating extremely well, and we've been fed well when we started, and we're still eating well now.
I
Yeah,
know.
Nani, I know you play video games.
yes.
Did you watch the trailer for Star Wars Outlaws?
I haven't actually. I've
Because I'm curious to know if that's a game that you'd be interested in, because that's a game that I don't care to play. So I'm curious to
yeah.
know like your perspective on it.
Yeah, I haven't actually seen it, so I can't really comment right at this point because I'm. Oh, forgive me. Come on, I'm heading towards finals in law school. Okay,
heading
give me
towards
a break.
finals.
It's okay.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Fair enough. Yeah.
You're
And I
forgiven. You're
can't.
forgiven.
And I am trying to ignore video games as much as possible because I know if I get started on a video game, the studying for the bar is not going to go
Fair.
well. And I already know that like the second part of Final Fantasy VII is coming up, which I'm really excited about, and all these other things, and Star Wars video games. If I start playing it, I'm not going to stop. So I've avoided seeing it. So,
But you have not. But you have not played the Jedi games.
No, I haven't.
Noor-Hal, have you played any of the Jedi games so far?
No, I haven't. I would definitely like to explore it, but I haven't yet. Have you?
Oh yes.
Oh, nice.
I don't play video games a lot, but when like I do is almost exclusively Star Wars games. The only other game that I have played that is not like a Star Wars game that I have been obsessed with was Ghost of Tsushima. That's
That
like
was so
the
good.
only one. And if you think about it, it's very Star Wars adjacent. You know, it's a samurai, and samurai are
samurais
basically Jedi. So
yes.
it's basically that. But before going into the breach, Noor-Hal, we haven't talked to you yet about the Bad Batch season 3, the final season of the Bad Batch. So we're in episode, what is this? 13.
13.
Thank you.
2 to go.
So we're in the end game. What have you thought so far about the season? And like, have it been living up to your expectations? Like, what has been your reaction to the Bad Batch so far?
Well, for me, it's bittersweet when you hear the word like final season, the concept.
I know.
So it's been because I get the feeling back when I was watching Rebels season 4 that it's the last one. So it's like, oh my God, what is going to happen with these characters we've got like engaged with? It's like because back then it's like they were not back around, or we thought they were not around during the original trilogy. So I got this bittersweet feeling like, oh, I'm enjoying it, but what is going to happen? I mean, especially what we had on season 2 with Heck. It's like, are we going to have more heartbreak? I mean, come on.
I'm still not over Tech. Nope.
No.
Still not over it.
So, but so far, I think it's been interesting, and I feel like definitely looking forward what's going to happen the final two episodes. But it's been interesting perspective of okay, what's going to happen, and at the end of the day, we know whether we like it or not. But the rise of Skywalker is there, Project Necromancy is there, so we are walking towards there. So it's like, hey, that's how it started. That's how they started doing this, and it's interesting to see. And well, all these characters, Hemlock, Dr. Carr, are quite interesting. Yeah. Though I see Hemlock, and I cannot help but seeing a Jeremy Renner because he looks like a young. I was watching the movie The Town by Ben Affleck.
Great movie.
Great movie, and he was younger, so it's like Hemlock. That's totally Hemlock.
Interesting.
I don't think I'm gonna be able to unsee that now.
I mean,
I haven't made the connection, but
I don't know if I agree. I mean, maybe the haircut, but for me,
the haircut.
Hey, Jeremy Renner. No disrespect to any Jeremy Renner fans out there, but I've never particularly liked him. So for
Oh,
me,
okay. Fair enough.
Oh,
he's never
okay.
seemed threatening to me. So
Oh, okay.
for me, Hemlock is like, if I were to compare Jeremy Renner with somebody, I would compare him with a Rampart. You know,
No,
to me,
no.
to me, to me,
Oh my
because for
God.
me, Hemlock is so intimidating, and Jeremy Renner somehow is not to me. To me, but
Yeah.
I
No,
also,
no, no.
but
Fair
I
enough.
don't like so many other Hollywood actors that
Totally okay. No,
it's not
but
personal.
no, Rick. Going back to the characters, I think it's interesting to see, and some aspects like how they're fighting. I mean, even this was a project that the emperor was
Hmm.
interested on it. That they were fighting for resources because at the end of the day, the empire is a bureaucracy, like
Hmm.
bureaucratic.
And yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So like, oh no, we need that for because we know that the Death Star was already being in progress. So
Hmm.
there were other projects, there were other needs for the empire at that moment. But it is interesting to see all that,
Hmm.
and
Definitely.
of course, well, Ventress. Oh my God,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
my girl
Yeah.
Ventress. Mm,
It's been definitely an interesting season. I want to hear your opinion, all of
yes,
your
yes.
opinions when I say this, because one of the things I have a group chat of other friends that we're watching obviously the Bad Batch, and we're
Uh-huh.
opining as the episodes go on. And one of the things that one of our friends was like, "Oh, how are you guys feeling about the show?" And then, because this was a question not on Wednesday,
Uh-huh.
it was off from when we were watching. I was just like, oh, I suddenly feel, because when you watch the episode, you're like excited and like, oh, there's new
Mhm.
Star Wars, blah blah. So like, there's enthusiasm right to it. But when you're thinking about it, when the episode is over or before the episode, you're
Mhm.
gonna have a different nuance to it. And I was just like, I've been really enjoying the season, but I've also felt frustrated because, at least to me, the season has been really good, but
Mhm.
a lot of the setup of the season has been about mysteries about these characters that we,
Yeah.
as outsiders, already
Already
know
know.
the answers to.
Yeah.
But to
Hmm.
be fair, we are, us three as outsiders, are outsiders
Mhm.
that are fans of Star Wars, and we're in everything. So we
True.
know the answers of that because we're in the Star Wars fandom. So we know what M counts out. We know what this means. We know what Project Necromancer is. So
Yeah.
I kind of want to pick your guys' brain about that perspective, about being frustrated with the mysteries that the season sets up, in terms of, are you frustrated by the mysteries because you might or might not know the answers, or do you feel you might feel different if you were a casual Star Wars fan? And Nani, let's start with you. Like, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like, because you're a Star Wars fan and you're plugged into everything, the show is frustrating, or do you feel like it doesn't affect you, or do you feel like you would enjoy it better if you didn't know anything about the Star Wars galaxy?
Okay. So basically, you're saying that maybe when we complain, we're being unfair to the non-nerds. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Simplify me.
Yeah. Simplify. Yeah. Us nerds here.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that to us nerds, it is frustrating. It is to me sometimes, especially when they go on and on about it. Like if they would have started it as a mystery, it's fine, we know it, but then kind of resolve that aspect of it, the actual
Mhm.
M count part, quickly, because
Mhm.
it's pretty easy to resolve an answer to that. You don't need. I think the frustrating part was that they've been dragging it on for so
Mhm.
long, and you don't
Yeah.
actually drop the word midichlorian until Asajj Ventress shows up, and
Mhm.
then they've never used it again. They
But
just
we got
kept
him.
saying M count. No, no, we
We
got
got
it,
him.
Yeah.
we got it. I'm very excited about it. And midichlorians are ridiculous to begin with, honestly. Like the whole concept to me from the
It's
beginning
fine.
when
It's
they
fine.
introduced it was insane.
It's been
But
25 years. Get over it.
no, get over it. I know, get over it. But yeah, so us as viewers that know what's happening in the world of Star Wars right now, it is a little frustrating because if you're gonna give me a mystery, give me something that I am like discovering along with the
Mhm.
characters, not something I'm like stupid. It's this. I already know.
Mhm.
But you might also be right that it's unfair to assume that everybody knows because
Mhm.
again, it's Star Wars animation, it's geared to a younger audience that maybe hasn't been exposed to the rest of Star Wars. That's one. And then a lot of people who are into the animation maybe are not necessarily into the rest of the world of Star Wars as a whole. And this is a show about characters that are not those legacy characters from the films. So they're kind of, they don't know. There's no way for them to know that this is how it works. And especially the Empire, as soon as they took over, everything became extremely secretive. Everything was secretive under, the Jedi's. Like only the Force users were allowed to have this information. So sometimes when we're like, but this is public knowledge, but it wasn't at the time. So I do think it is frustrating as we watch it again, especially because they dragged it out for so long. But yeah, maybe it isn't fair to whine about it so much.
Noor-Hal, what do you think? Do you think we're being unfair, or like, what's your perspective on this?
It could be. I mean, it could be either or, because yeah, it's frustrating. I agree with Annie, because it's frustrating that we already know. It's like we already know what's midichlorians. And of course we're saying, yeah, it's kind of like what we know what's the end, what's gonna happen in the rest of Skywalker. So it's kind of like setting the foundations of how it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But that's a good point, because it's not unfair. It's just make sure, because for example, somebody who just watched, like a casual viewer, or someone that focuses only on the animated, maybe is not aware of that, and it's valid. It's valid point to brought up, like, hey, is maybe you're missing this. Is like some of the aspects that were criticized from Ahsoka, for example, that we start from this point that we already know what happened on Rebels,
right?
But a casual viewer is like, oh, wait, what? Who's Sabine? Who's Ezra? What?
Yeah.
So it could be. Both are valid, because at the end of the day, if you don't have the previous knowledge, it might be it is good that you have some, like a summary of what it is, but if you don't know, maybe you're not gonna understand totally. But yeah, it can be frustrating, because like you said, they dragged a lot the count thing. Like okay.
Yeah. I think that was the main problem, because if they would have just presented it and like solved it quickly, it would have been fine. So you can explain it for people that are new viewers, but then find something else to keep us older viewers engaged. But the fact that they just like used it in so many episodes, like, oh, what is this? What is this? What is this?
Exactly. And especially because it gives opens a lot of questions. It's like, for example, we know that from the last 2 seasons, the Empire has this interest in Omega, and they're chasing for why. And then when you said, oh, it's because the M counts can replicate on her blood, it's like, but wait, there's another pure clone of Jango Fett called Alpha, called Boba Fett. So a lot of questions start like coming up.
Well, and now that you brought up Boba Fett, like, I was really thinking that he was going to show up, because especially in season 2, when they first mentioned like the whole Alpha and Omega thing, and it makes sense. And at this point, do you think he's going to show up? Because we are only 2 episodes away, so I very much doubt it. And were you hoping for him to show up as well, Noor-Hal?
I was kind of hoping, especially when we had Cat Bane. It's like, hey, that's the perfect scene to have, like, they're facing each other. I mean, if you have all this bounty hunter involved, and I love Fennec Chan to be part of that, but it would have been also amazing to have Boba, even if it's like, hey, they're chasing and they face each other, and that's we had the confrontation we knew about,
and kind of that recognition of, wait,
yes,
you're my counterpart here. I mean, there were so many possibilities, like you said, because they kept bringing back all these bounty hunters, and we know that's what Boba Fett is doing, and there was so much opportunity to bring him in, and I think to do it in a really interesting way. And I think it's one of those things that I'm gonna be kind of upset about when it ends. That's like, there were so many missed opportunities to bring this character that you kind of revived again, because with the Book of Boba and Mandalorian, there's so much more that's been brought with Boba Fett. To see him in this point of his life where we don't really know what's going on, I think would have been really special. But there's only so much you can do in 15 episodes, I guess.
I agree.
Right, and it's one of those things where like I was theorizing and hoping that Boba would show up in the season because it narratively kind of makes sense, right? To like
Yes.
contrast, it's binary. Like you have like alpha and omega, like the positive and the
Yeah.
negative, all these things. However, like I also feel like it's also fair to not have him because it's just like it's her story.
True.
And the minute you bring him,
Yeah.
people
Makes
get
sense.
distracted. It's like, oh, Boba Fett's here. It's like one of those reasons that I understand why Luke Skywalker wasn't a part of the sequel trilogy in a larger role than he was, because the minute you bring in a legacy character like that, you forget about the
Yes.
new characters that you're trying to talk about. So in that regard, I get it. It's just
Yeah.
like it's Omega's story, not Boba's story. So as much as I would have liked to like have that interaction between how it would have happened with the
Yeah.
both of them during the show, I also understand that it it's not his story. So he's off doing his
Yeah.
own thing. So I get it. Like the people writing the Bad Batch are much smarter and creative than I am. So I'm just gonna let them do what they're
Do their
clearly
thing.
doing, which
Yeah.
is smart. But
Yeah.
again, in terms of like what we're talking about the frustrating aspects of the show, it's really interesting because as much as I like this episode, which if you anyone listening to this episode, you know that we might not have been as big of a fan of Juggernaut last week's episode
Mhm.
as we probably
Yeah.
could have been. This episode was definitely an improvement, but still in the same vein as last week's episode. But in a way, one of the things that I feel to me that was interesting about it is that I feel that this episode, in a way, kind of left us in the same position that we were at
Mhm.
the end of episode 1 or 2 or 3. I don't remember like what was the episode that I was gonna say Ahsoka that Omega was about to like break out. It was either episode 1 or 3,
Yes.
one of those two.
Yeah.
So like in a way, we're back at the beginning of the season, which I'm not saying is necessarily a bad thing because we have had a lot of character development and a lot of character
Mhm.
growth. But again, it's one of those frustrating things. Where it's like we thought we would spend so much time in Tantis doing the prison break at the beginning
Mhm.
of the season, and then that
Yeah.
happened so fast. And then all of a sudden we're back into Omega being kidnapped and then having to break away again. So it's one of those things where it's like, oh, we're back at the beginning. Obviously, it's a completely different context, but in a way, we're back at the beginning of the season in a different context, and everything's the same but different, and everyone's confused. At least I am. But we're frustrated, we're
Yes.
satisfied, we're happy, but we're bored. So many emotions about this. Nora, how
Yes.
do you feel about this episode? Like, how are you feeling with where we are?
I agree with you because at some point it's like, oh, okay, we're gonna have another breakout. Okay, got it. But at a certain point, it had some developments. For example, I could see that like the parallel in some way there was a parallel of the guys arriving, the Bad Batch arriving to this, breaking out this ship, this location, this Empire location, and kind of led by Hunter. Whereas here we have Omega getting to the bridge, then into this boat, and um, taking that approach like, oh, I'm going to break you out and I'm going to take you all with me. So
Hmm.
I feel like, oh my God, we know that Omega sees Bad Batch like they're her big brothers, but I
Hmm.
feel like, hey, Hunter is like a father for her because
Yeah.
like a father figure. I mean, but yeah, it's kind of like, okay, we're going to have another breakout, and it drives me to think, oh my God, we're going to lose somebody.
Yeah.
Don't break my heart.
Yeah.
But
Stop playing with my emotions.
I
Hmm. Hmm.
know
Yeah.
we're still not over about over tech. So
I know. I know.
Nani, how did you feel with this episode?
Okay, so I actually really liked the episode. I would have liked it more if it was like episode 10, not episode 13 or 15.
yeah.
Hmm.
Because as we were saying last week, which I wasn't a big fan of last week's episode. This one I actually enjoyed. The problem is, like you were saying, that there's only 2 episodes left, and it was also
Yeah.
like a setup episode. So in that sense, it was like I was a little worried. I'm really hoping that some of the theories we were saying last week, that maybe episode 15 will be like twice as long, so
Hmm.
they can because at this point, I don't know how they're gonna wrap everything
Wrap up. Yeah.
up. Where if we left it almost in the same place as last episode, and now we only have two
Yeah.
left, so that kind of freaks me out. But other than that, I mean, like we always say, it was incredibly gorgeous episode. The sound editing and the score are so good. There was so much tension in this episode because every single time any of our Bad Batchers are in any jeopardy, we start freaking out because we know that nobody's safe. And then that whole scene when Echo is infiltrating and there's like all these moments of almost getting caught. I'm just like, please stop. Oh, don't make me lose one of the guys that I love, because as me and Gus discuss all the time, we don't care that much about Hunter.
No.
But the other ones, please keep
I know.
But there were some really cool moments still. It's really awesome to see Omega flourishing on her own, because last time she was doing it, but she still also had kind of Crosshair there as backup, and now she's full on the leader and the kids are looking up to her. So it's really nice to see her being completely resourceful and acting like a Bad Batch member. I mean, the one moment that she's just like, I love a challenge. I was like,
I know.
Go Omega. I love you.
So proud.
And it's just incredibly gorgeous, and it's also nice to see, especially there at the end of the episode, to see Hunter starting to really grab the reins of what's going on. We were talking about last week too, that we've seen this like overly cautious person, and he kind of just let go of it completely this time when he's like, we have to stop because there's no way he's going to get it done. Negative. And he just goes after the ship even before Echo is able to turn off the sensors. And he's just like super Han Solo move under the ship, just waiting for it. Stuck. It's like the reverse escaping through the garbage, just like underneath.
Yeah, the garbage shit I thought about, or the Empire Strike Back when they escape with the garbage. That was fantastic.
Yeah, and it's just like that one moment where he's like, negative. We're doing this like because of Omega. I will discard my actual instincts for caution and do anything that I can. And
but
that
not
moment,
just that, it's also trusting his brother.
That's true, because he will come through for us. Trust him. We can do this. So even with like, I wish it was like more an episode towards the middle, so I wouldn't have to be worried about where we're going. But there were still really, really awesome moments, and I was entertained throughout. It was like after it was done that I was like, wait, there's only 2 left. This is not good.
I know.
But the episode itself, I thought was really good. What do you think, Gus?
It was. I mean, yes, it was and I think it's one of those things that we have talked about before. Even an episode that we haven't been particularly enthused by, it's still a good episode, because Juggernaut is still a good episode. There's been other episodes this season that haven't been like as exciting personally to me, but it's still good as a as a standalone episode. And I feel like the season itself, regardless of my wants and desires and engagement with the mysteries and so forth, I feel like it's been definitely a very strong season. And this episode, I think, does, for me, a lot more heavy lifting in terms of like setting up what we've called before the end game of the season than Juggernaut did, because it's literally like setting up the pieces of how Omega is going to break out on her own, and then obviously how the Bad Batch are going to break her, like, break in to break her out. So I think it's very explicit in that sense, and I think it does a good job at setting up the stakes and the tension for both things to happen simultaneously. But the things that I really enjoyed about the episode, and it's because I'm a architecture and graphic design nerd and behind the scenes nerd and all these things, and I liked all the callbacks to everything. So for me, this episode was very graphically powerful because I saw so many things. I'm just like, oh, this means that, and this is calling back to that. And I don't know if it's me just placing importance and parallels into things that don't have them versus things that were tensioned to have them. But like I remember like one of the first scenes in the episode where it's just like that top view of Mount Tantus. It's just like
Whoa.
the ringing nature.
Yeah.
And the minute I saw that, I'm just like, that's, I don't know how many of you are, either both of you right now or anyone listening, architecture nerds or Apple nerds. But it reminded me of Apple Campus in California, which is like this giant ring in Cupertino with like
Cupertino.
all the nature inside it. And I was like, I was just like, is this on purpose? Because I'm just like, this
Are
is
you guys doing?
visually, I was like, visually, this is the exact same thing. It's like Apple Campus in California is the exact same thing as the Mount Tantus. It's like the imposition of perfect geometry in nature. And I was just like,
Yeah.
I don't know, this is a thing that Lucasfilm is trying to say about capitalism and the imposition of architecture over the built environment. But I'm just like, and don't get me wrong, everything I own is an Apple product, so I love Apple and all these things. But I can also
Right.
understand that Apple not a good corporation, as most corporations
Yeah.
are not. But for me, that was like a visual cue that for me was like very powerful, because it's one of those things that Star Wars always has done and continues
Oh
to do,
yes.
and it's tying the messaging of like the political statements that it's doing with the familiar and then turning it into something new. And sure, it's, Mount Tantus is a mountain, but it's still like the imposition of, of man or of humankind over nature.
Yeah.
So for me,
And it
that was
makes
a
sense
very
for that to
parallel
be
imagery.
empire as well, because
Hell yeah,
that's
hell
kind
yeah.
of the nature of the empire
Yeah.
to like,
To
try to
impose itself
control the
as opposed to
natural.
live
Yeah.
within.
Impose.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then like the other thing that for me was, and we talked about it a little bit the last episode, but Juggernaut was just having all the three prisoner children be red, blue, and green. It's just like, well, that's an RGB, it's like that's
Yes.
how in computer graphics is like RGB gives you all the colors digitally that you could ever want. And then for me, it was very important in this episode, because then all of a sudden we have RGB have a white baby, and you think
Yeah.
about it, if you maximize all the values of red, green, and blue, you get white.
You get white.
255 to 55 to 55 gives you white. And all of a sudden,
Nice.
like, you have the new baby, which babies are hope, and then this baby is white. So like all the values of the colors are giving you hope. And that baby shows up when Omega shows up. So I'm just like, oh, I don't
Wow.
know if that was on purpose, but for me, I'm just like, oh, this is
Blowing
great.
my mind.
This is
Mind blown.
because
No, and that's fantastic to catch all those subtleties. And for me, for example, it gave me this episode than the previous one gave me reminded me of The Believer from The Mandalorian season 2.
Yeah.
In this point that it's a recurring gag across media in Star Wars, especially on the Age of the Empire, that even with the height of this organization, you're going to have especially former Imperials, but also other people can just pose as Imperials, just act as they are, as they own the place, and people are, oh no, excuse me, sir, go ahead, like, and we see it, like, even like, for example, Beckett in Solo and Star Wars, posing as a girl. So it is interesting how the Empire, as mighty as they are, that's a weakness. That's a recurring weakness.
Which
That's
is
from Andor too.
exactly. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
It ties back to like the it's what it was at episode 3 of
Fat and
Andor. 3 or 3
satisfied.
exactly. The episode 3 or 4 of Andor when Stellan Skarsgård's asking Diego Luna, it's just like, oh, how did you do it? How did you steal the star path or whatever? It was like, you just walk in like you own the place. They're so fat and happy they don't care. It's like it's just amazing, and I think that's one of the great things about this episode, because I agree with you, Nora. Last episode, Juggernaut was definitely the believer, but this episode is one way out.
Yes.
Because then obviously it's the most, I don't think it was subtle at all, because where they are is the white prison.
The white,
and they're all prisoners with their white jumpsuits, just like in Andor and Arcana 5. And then what does Omega say? She says our way out, which is so similar to One Way Out. But I think it's poignant though, because while Andor is like, it's like we're all escaping together, it's still like one way, so it's still in the singular, right? It's just like individually we're all escaping, but Omega is just like, no, it's like it's collective. We're all escaping together. So I think it's a very minor detail, but I think it makes a lot of difference in terms of like how it frames how she's different from everybody.
Yeah.
Course.
It's not about like me escaping; it's about us escaping.
Us escaping.
So I think that was very interesting and cool. And again, it's just like the whole visual parallels of how they're both finding hope and escape into their
Yes.
different circumstances, because Omega is this in white environment and she's trying to get out, and then the Bad Batch are in this dark, oppressive environment
Yeah.
trying to get in. So it's just like those
Yeah.
visual dichotomies of everything.
My God.
I
Yes.
think to me were the things that for me like make the episode work, even though I don't
Mm-hmm.
think necessarily that it's as deep
Mm-hmm.
thematically as some of the previous episodes have been, but at least visually, I feel like the episode did a lot of things for me that I'm just thinking about. Oh, the mechanics of this and the visuals of that and the symbolism of this versus that and how they're all working together to tell this cohesive story really, really worked for me. And just to kind of wrap up, because I know I'm rambling, it's the
It's
final
interesting. It's fine.
But
the
that's
the
interesting.
the final piece, which is the music, and it's
Oh,
a
yeah.
credit to the Kiners, Kevin Kiner, Sean, and and Deanna Kiner, with the super electronic, very Blade Runner dystopian synthesizer music for Mount Tantus and the sinister
Yeah.
aspect of everything that kind of it's heavy on the rest of the episode. I think it's beautiful. So it's one of those things where the Kiners keep making amazing
Oh
music,
my God.
and
Yes.
every time you just hear more layers to it. So I have to, the same way that we say each episode looks more beautiful than the previous one,
It
the
sounds.
music on each
Yeah.
episode is
Sound.
even
Mhm.
more amazing than the last one. So yeah,
Yes.
that's my thing. I don't know. I got hung up on I got hung up along the RGB stuff, which I think is super super nerdy. But
That's
Oh, but I
amazing.
think it's super
yeah,
cool too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
maybe I don't know.
Okay, and so I'm not crazy, right? We saw Cloud City.
It's not Cloud City.
Okay, fine.
It's not Cloud City. It's
Yeah.
very evocative of Cloud
Mhm.
City, but thanks to Star Wars Explained and the StarWars.com
It turns it isn't.
episode guide,
Uh-huh.
like it reminded me,
Mhm.
because I
Oh.
have my memory
Mhm.
sucks, but
Mhm.
that's a planet that we have gone to in season 1, which is
I do not remember.
it's
Sorry.
a secondary Kaminoan cloning facility
Okay.
that they
Okay.
had that's
Oh, that makes
abandoned,
sense.
and that's
Yeah.
where Cat Bane showed up for the first time in the Bad Batch to
Right.
kidnap
Yeah.
Omega.
Okay, now I
I
kind of
don't remember
remember.
the name, but I
Yeah.
also thought the same thing as Jimmy. It's like, oh, is this like a
Cloud City.
new
Yeah.
Bespin? But yeah,
Yeah.
But it looked awesome. It's
yeah,
it's such a gorgeous place to kind of like do that setup of we're going into the dark from this
Yes.
place in the clouds, and I do have to add that they definitely, because I find Rampart so vanilla, but they clearly added more personality with the beard. So we
yes,
got a little bit better. And the thing that was really to me bittersweet about it was them having to remove or all
Oh
the like
yes.
identifiers from their uniforms. Um which kind of hurt because we've been talking about how much we love that they've had to, like
I
stamp their individuality into them. Yes, Noor.
and that's what I said. Saw another connection with the believer
hmm
because it's like Dean taking off his armor and
Mandalorian
then
armor, yeah.
showing his face. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, care so much about Omega that
yeah,
even if that is representative of them, they
yeah,
don't care.
yeah,
So I feel like, oh my God, they're taking away their
yeah. It's like
divine.
forsaking their individuality to have to
Yeah.
like kind of blend in so that they can save their sister.
hmm
Um, but I think it was also, and that's why I say bittersweet because
Yeah.
Crosshair had still not, kind of upgraded his. So it's kind of like now they're all back at the same level. And now it's like a new beginning. So there's only hopefully, because I really want them all to
Yes.
survive this. They're kind of at the same place now. So they've kind of found their way back to each other and they're kind of starting from scratch. And it's like kind of a rebirth moment for them, like in reverse, because you see them actually like kind of burning it off. So it's more like a rebirth through flames, Phoenix style kind of thing.
Which is
So the
interesting because
visual,
last week we
yeah,
were theorizing about Crosshair painting his armor,
yeah, and now
but
we're like,
then the
okay,
season is just like they're
it's
stripping it down.
they're stripping it down, so it's not like him adapting to his brothers that have moved kind of beyond him almost. It's them kind of going back and meeting Crosshair
Mhm.
and accepting him and then waiting to kind of like evolve together from that point on, which
I love that.
I thought was really beautiful. So we'll
Yeah.
see if that was on purpose.
So they're all gonna modify their armor
Maybe at
now
the end
going
it's like
forward
now.
together. It's
Yeah,
just like, okay, let's just paint our
And
armor together.
I hope so.
yeah, fingers crossed. And then Omega is gonna have her armor too. Yes.
I think it makes sense for Omega to just get armor, considering that she already has like her, like
Yeah.
a bow
Yes.
and laser weapon, whatever the hell that's called. I'm sorry, I don't know the names of
And
everything.
she's had opportunities to kind of claim a different sort of identity, like by learning that she's force sensitive and that she could be trained by a Slash Ventress if she chose to, like all these things. And more and more and more, she chooses to be a part of the Bad Batch. So I think it would be really cool if she got her own armor. But
Yes.
I wanted to ask you guys, do you think at this one, because to me it seems like it, that Emery is actively on Omega's side and was actually helping? What do you think, Noor-Hal?
I hope. Yeah, I feel like yes, especially when like we've seen her character development as well. So yeah, I feel like, we saw the other. I forgot the name of the other doctor that she was like, "Oh, what are
Oh,
you leaving
Car?
her with?"
Was it Car?
No, Car is Emery Car is
Emery's
the
Car. Okay, yeah,
yeah.
the other one was, I
But
don't remember. Mhm.
the one that almost caught Omega.
Scholar.
the
Yes.
other, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't remember.
So yeah, I feel that especially since we had that episode focused on Emery, it feels like there's going to be like a change or switch on her as well. So yeah,
And they
quite
pointed
possible.
again at the fact that she had given one of the children the doll and they mentioned that she's like one of
Yeah.
the nice ones and everything. But I think she was actively helping Omega because that scene where she goes to take her sample and she has the tray with instruments on it,
Mm-hmm.
And
she
she
didn't
had to have
need
noticed, she had to
Yeah.
have noticed that something was missing.
not only would she have to have noticed, she didn't need all those extra implements. Like she just needed the one to take the sample. The other ones were like extras, and then any good researcher or doctor, nurse would notice
I'm
you know
missing something.
an instrument missing. So I think she left the tray right next to her on purpose, and then when she noticed it was gone, just continued on her way. I think she was actively assisting this time. So that was cool.
That was nice. Yeah.
It's definitely something that I'm not completely sure if when she brought the tools, she meant them to
But
be
at least
used
when
that
she
way.
didn't call the alarm when it was
Right.
missing.
Exactly. Yeah. Like
But I do definitely think, and I've said it like in previous episodes, that she is going to become the tech of the group moving forward. Which I think it's a good moment now to shift from, everything we've talked about, like how we felt about this episode. But I think now it's like a good moment to
Responsible
shift
speculation.
about our responsible speculation. And it's
Yeah.
just like we only have 2 episodes left. And Noor-Hal, one of the things that we were talking about last week was how this was like kind of a surprise speculation thing that we didn't expect that we were going to say. We thought that because usually these seasons have 16 episodes, this season only has 15. So we're like, where's the missing episode? So one of our operating theories is we have 2 theories. One, either not next week, and the final season, the final episode, sorry.
Episode 15 will be
We're
twice
going to
as
have
long.
a double episode,
Yeah.
a surprise double episode, or by the end of the episode, it's gonna be like the Bad Batch will return in a surprise movie. And it's gonna be a Disney Plus movie like the week after or something like that. So we think there's gonna be like something either a double episode or a surprise movie. So how do you feel about that? What do you think is going to happen? Speculate responsibly or don't. Speculate however you want. Tell us what you think.
Well, I would definitely be on board on any of them, but I feel like having like a surprise movie, like, oh, we're gonna have like the Clone Wars movie, but like
Right.
Disney Plus, whatever, it would
Hmm.
work perfectly like a coda
Hmm. Hmm.
this
Hmm.
for the Bad Batch, because hey, it's the final season, so no more Bad Batch. So
Hmm.
same as the Bad Batch was the coda of the Clone Wars,
Yeah.
a movie would be
The
that.
Coda. Yeah.
Yes, coda coda. So especially because, yeah, at this point, like I said, we have so many questions. What happened to them? I mean, we have learned with Filoni and company that not having a character during the original trilogy or in the doesn't mean that they're dead, right? But
Right.
anyway, yeah, it could be either or, but it would be nice to see, okay, what's gonna happen with them and how and hopefully we get more of them in the future in future
Yeah.
adventures, maybe in the Mandiverse. That would not that would definitely love to see something, a follow up on their
Mhm.
stories.
And we have Temuera. I mean, Temuera's like
Hey, yes,
very busy nowadays, thanks to Book of Boba Fett, The Mandalorian. He was in Obi-Wan Kenobi, so he's available. So
And he's awesome.
it's
and he's
awesome.
awesome. So we know that he's definitely down for anything that we might need in the Star Wars universe. And we have de aging, so he can play himself
Yes,
in any of these clones and
Yeah.
whenever we need. Nani, how about you? I feel like it's also very, I don't want to say complicated, but easy to start
yeah,
speculating towards the end as
Yeah.
we get closer and like all the
Yeah.
other
Because there's not much
wild
to speculate
theories we've
about.
had.
Yeah.
There can
yeah,
still be
yeah.
wild cards, so like there's still possibilities for crazy things. But where does Into the Breach leave you?
Yeah. So again, like I said at the beginning, I'm kind of worried that it is only 2 episodes left. So I mean, we know the big thing is going to be the prison breakout, or it turns out that Omega actually gets everybody out safely, and it turns into something else, like an all-out attack on Tantis, uh, which could happen. But knowing how they kind of resolve the current conflict leaves us, like Noor-Hal was saying, so many questions. Like, what's gonna happen to the Bad Batch after this one conflict? Like,
Hmm.
after they're done fighting, quote unquote, because they have their whole team together. Are they gonna decide to join the rebellion? Are they gonna decide to retire peacefully? Are they gonna decide to kind of help other clone troopers leave their identity as soldiers behind and find a new way of living? Like, there's so much potential to what this group of very special troopers are, because that was the whole thing about
Yeah.
them. They're like the freaks, they're different, they're mutants, they're all
Hmm.
these things, but they became stronger because of it, and they have a more distinct identity that some of the other troopers have. So they have an advantage. Um, so I would feel really incomplete if we just end the conflict and then that's it for the Bad Batchers. Like, if we don't get an epilogue here,
Yeah.
I would be upset. So either we get a resolution of the conflict like early on in the episode, and it's a longer episode and we kind of get to see, you don't need to answer all of my questions, but at least lead me in a direction, like
Hmm.
where they were headed. And I think a movie would be really poignant because, as we've talked before, that's how the Clone Wars actually ended. This is like, we've always said the Bad Batch is kind of um the Clone Wars season 7.2,
Yeah.
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know.
Hmm.
So I like rounding all of that together in film mode, and they could have been doing it this whole time, because animation, you could keep it hidden and not tell anybody about it, and then just release it
Hmm.
on Disney Plus. And I think the last episode is what, like May 1st. So it
Hmm.
would be really close to May 4th for them to be able to
Yes.
do like an announcement or something. And I think it was your idea originally, right, Goose? The chance of there being a movie.
No, that was a Star Wars Tia.
Ah, that was the
Actually,
Star
maybe
Wars
that
Tia.
maybe that was a collaborative
Collaborative
speculation.
Effort.
effort.
So okay.
A
So
collaborative effort.
once
Yeah,
the problem is that once it was suggested,
it's
now
like,
I'm
yeah, we're
really
doing
into
this.
the
Yeah,
idea, you know?
Hey, and it
So
would be a precious way to finish the Clone Wars plus
I
the
know.
Bad Batch because we
yeah,
started with a movie,
Yeah.
the Clone
exactly.
Wars.
But
So it
it's one of those interesting things though, because the as you were saying, that one of the things that I'm starting to argue against is that one of the things I think that everyone has been talking about with the finale of Bad Batch, especially with a Wolf returning a couple episodes ago, is explaining how Rex, Gregor, and Wolf ended up where they ended up
Yes,
in
in Rebels,
Rebels.
yeah. Hmm.
But
Rebels.
I'm just like, well, is it fair for their story to this show that's not about them to, shoehorn why they're
Yeah.
there like so quickly? I mean, it's like probably not. So
Uh-uh.
I feel like there's still story to tell for these
The Bad Batch
clones,
themselves.
and
Yeah.
there's
Hmm.
and there's
Yeah.
I'm not saying necessarily like a spin-off or something like that, but I still feel like there's openings
Mm-hmm.
for some stories to be left unresolved, to be
Yeah.
picked up at some other point. And I think that maybe, as we said last week, that the Asajj Ventress episode is a soft pilot for
Yes.
a Asajj Ventress show to
Yeah.
move on and be talking about the path and everything that was set up in Obi-Wan Kenobi and and
Yes.
and Jedi Fallen Order and all these things, and be more Jedi focused. But there's also an opportunity and an opening, like I just said, for more clone stories, even though everyone
Yeah.
has
Yes.
been saying this is the end of the Clone Wars. And it's like, but no, because we still again have Gregor, Wolf, and Rex, and we still don't
Yes.
know how they ended up there. So I don't know. I just want Omega to be happy. That's all
I
I know.
know.
I
She deserves to be
know.
happy.
I want her to be happy. I want her to meet Boba Fett eventually. So
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know how that's gonna happen. It's not gonna happen in the next 2 weeks.
I
But
don't think so, but
I don't know. I'm just excited because like
yeah.
I have a feeling that we're not gonna get anything that we want. The only thing that I'm kind of sure that we'll get
Hey,
is a happy ending for
but
Omega.
hey, our expectations are kind of okay. Like
I think we're
so,
reasonable. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we're not expecting Mace Windu
No.
and
No.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
No,
Yeah, people
no Mace Windu. Mace
like
Windu's in
that.
the Living Force. He's not showing back. Going back here. No, absolutely not.
Yeah, it's like the typical meme on social media, like, oh, it didn't meet my expectations. My expectations, and you throw all the characters
Yeah.
Yeah,
that you can
Yeah.
think of. No, of course not.
Mace Windu back from the dead. Luke Skywalker wielding 3 lightsabers at the same time. No,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
no. Like
So,
leave your male power fantasies somewhere else. Let's just deal with reality. But yeah, so many theories, so many things that we could like keep speculating on. We could be talking about this like forever. But unfortunately for now, I think this is a good spot to start wrapping things up. But Norhal, we know you're like involved with like a lot of other like podcasts, and you're guesting with other people talking about Bad Batch and other Star Wars related stuff. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you have going on these days? I know that it's a little hard for everyone to keep in touch because we're on Threads, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Blue
I know.
Sky, so many things. So why don't you tell us a little bit about like where you are these days and what you're up to so that people can follow you?
Oh, definitely. No, thank you so much for having me again. And yeah, been collaborating uh, with the Geeky Waffle and other guesting in other podcasts. But always you can find me on Twitter, on Instagram at Norhal, and I'm gonna use more threads, I promise, because I'm terrible. But yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely enjoy talking about Star Wars. I think we are being fed very good,
Yeah.
very
Mhm.
well these days. I'm looking forward for the acolyte. I'm looking forward to get back into the High Republic. I fell terribly behind, but definitely you can find me there. See, I have a link tree on my bio on Twitter with all my other pursuits and collaborations. But definitely, it's always a pleasure to talk to you guys about Star Wars. It's yeah, I'm really excited to see I mean, what we're gonna have in store for these 2 last
Yeah.
episodes.
No,
Yeah.
it's great. It's great to have you. You're part of the Triad family. We've had you like so many times on, and it's always great to talk to you. And definitely not the last time. So thank you so much, always for saying yes to join the Triad. And
Yes.
we'll talk to you like on the next one. So
Yeah.
everyone that doesn't follow Noor-Hal, please make sure to follow her. She's amazing, has great things to say, and like has great collaborations with other great friends out there. So we'll be leaving links down in the description below, so you can follow her and everything that she's doing. So please make sure to follow her. And thank you, Nora, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again. It was a pleasure, and definitely, yeah, looking forward to see what we have in store with the final 2 episodes.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how they are able to wrap this up, but I have hope. The Star Wars, especially in animation, has never let me down. They tend to know exactly where they're going, and they do amazing things. So here's looking forward to the next 2 weeks and how they resolved it, and hopefully something more, because we still have Tales of the Empire and all these other goodies. And we already know that somebody like Asajj Ventress, you don't bring her back from the dead for nothing. So we're gonna see more of our beautiful, beautiful Asajj. But thank you again, Noor-Hal, for joining us. It's always so much fun. Obviously, we will have you back again as always.
Yes, thank you.
Let's hope. I don't know. The Bad Batch. I'm worried. It's only 2 episodes. I really try to be hopeful. I try to be hopeful, but
that'll be good.
So remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment, share your anxieties about how close we are now to the end of the Bad Batch. And until next time, may the Force be with you.